Well, hi everyone, this is Margaret from Thunder Bay Public Library. I'm here today because I wanted to discuss what happened just before all of the COVID stuff set in. Prior to March 2020, there were seemingly two ways to educate a child in Ontario. You could send your child to school or you could homeschool. And now in the post-COVID era, or this, I guess it's still the COVID era, there might be three. So you can send your child to school, you can choose to homeschool, or you can do the learn at home option. Um, like my people like myself who might be doing the learn at home option are still very nervous about how to interact with your child all day long and make sure that they get a great education. So today, Rachel Shields, an experienced homeschooling parent here in Thunder Bay, is going to provide some wisdom and advice to people like myself and out there, some nervous parents. So I want to thank you, Rachel, for coming out and talking to us today.
My pleasure.
Okay, so let's start me with, what's a typical homeschool day look like for a parent?
Okay, so for when my kids were younger, so I'll do it by ages. When my kids were younger, it would be about a 9 to noon. We would have breakfast together and then we would try and get done by lunchtime. And so that was very realistic in most of our days. As my kids are older, so I have a daughter in college now and a son that's going into grade 11. What a typical day would be like is I might be doing work next to him on a laptop while he's working. And once a week, I would check in with him, actually doing all his assignments, grading his assignments. And so that would be what our family would look like. But there's so many varieties of ways to do it within the homeschool world.
Right. Well, one of the things when I'm discussing with my friends and coworkers about sending your kids back to school, even with COVID still an issue, is economic. Parents feel they have to work and that school provides that daycare opportunity for them. And other parents feel that they just aren't ready to be around their kids 24/7. So, you know, again, sending them away to someone else who might teach and be able to handle them. So how does a parent prepare to have a child learn at home and be sane?
That is a very good question. And I definitely feel for the parents who this is becoming thrust upon them, whereas we chose this. And I think when you choose something, it's different as when you are grappling with how to do it. So we have the passion behind educating our kids at home. How do you stay sane? That's a good question. So for us, my husband and I did share it. I was the primary, maybe teacher, principal, setting up the program plan for the year. But there were a couple subjects where he would take a chance. He would be with them, so I would have a chance to have a break or have a chance to be one-on-one with a different kid. Another way to stay sane. Sometimes consequences ruin and hijack our plans. So I guess be prepared for that. Like, are you willing to do this battle once and they see the consequences of not doing their work? And then hopefully, you know, if you had great plans that weekend and somehow they're changed because of their lack of effort, for instance, are you prepared to really do what you said you were going to do for the consequences? Like, we're not going, and you said it out of your mouth, you better follow suit. So don't make a threat. You're not going to follow suit. And if you make a threat, you better follow suit. And so hopefully that'll reduce future issues.
Right.
But yeah, it is challenging, but there's also great joy in it. We chose this, and it was very good for our kids. So for those parents who are looking forward to it, that'll be great. But it is hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's scary. Yeah, scary times out there, scary times in the house.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
One of the other rationales about sending the kids back to school is the socialization aspect. So tell me what socialization for a homeschool child looked like before COVID and what it might look like now.
No, that's a good question. So they've actually done studies, and homeschool kids are more socialized or well adapted. They have a lower suicide rate, a better self-esteem. So homeschool kids are happier kids. But that study also showed that most homeschool kids were involved in 5 to 8 activities outside of the house throughout a week or month. And so we are involved and actively involved in a homeschool co-op, and that would meet depending on what city we live in. So now we live in Thunder Bay, but some homeschool co-ops meet once a week, some co-ops meet once a month, and so it depends like that. And once you go there, you get to know families your kids' age, and then you connect at other points during the week so your kids can socialize. Our kids were involved at different activities. We said one sport and one extracurricular a semester. And so it might be music, it might be drama and acting. So they would have some type of sport, some type of activity. They were also involved at our church. So we had youth group, Sunday school, different things like that. So they were out of the house quite a bit, even though they're homeschooled. So, yeah.
Right. And what do you think that might look like now?
With COVID. So we know, so our son is an air cadet, and we know that that is starting back up. So we do want to have him have that. For our son, he is going to be working now. He just turned 16 today. And so he will be getting the job, and that will take a lot of his free time hours. And then other than that, just hanging out with friends that he already had established. So ensuring he still has that time. He's still involved in our youth group, and so we do one live and one virtual a month. So he'll still have some type of socializing, but yeah, socializing is key. The kids that are introverts, they'll thrive during this time because they're happy to stay in their room. The kids that are extroverts, they're going to be asking for being with friends, and that's good. Try and yeah.
Right.
You can also take turns as parents. That's an option as well as, okay, I'll take your child or children and then you take mine. And so have some type of arrangement with friends, with your kids' friends, parents.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. So I would imagine that homeschooling allows for much more flexibility and creativity than the proposed learn at home is going to. Especially because the whole learn at home model is going to be based heavily on screen time. So what advice do you have for parents who want to keep their children engaged in learning, but the child might be suffering from screen fatigue?
Oh, that's a good question. So is this in the learn at home style or is this in the, okay, the learn at home. So they definitely need eye breaks and physical activity. So if they take like an hour, for instance, where they have to be on, then they need to have some kind of like 5 to 10 minute break. Go walk around the block, go jump on a trampoline, go to the park or something. Or when we were in Montreal, we would have our daughter run up and down the stairs a few times, and something if the weather's bad that they can like move their body for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do need to have the break. Another option is instead of having regular chairs, you could also get those balls that are big exercise balls, and the kids can sit on that. And so as they're sitting on that, their body's moving. And at the very beginning, they play around, but after a day or two, they get used to it. And then they're getting a core workout while they are at the screen.
That's really good. So it's estimated that 1 in 10 students in Thunder Bay are going to be doing the learn at home model. Do you feel there are enough resources in the community to support those families? And could you tell me about the support resources you use as parents of homeschoolers?
That is a great question. I am not familiar with what the school board offers for supports. A big support for us locally would be the homeschool group. So there's 2 homeschool groups. There's the Superior Shores homeschool group, and then there's the Thunder Bay Christian homeschoolers group. And so both are good groups. So get involved with them, join them on Facebook and get to know them. They have different outings. For young kids, they might do field trips together, for instance. So it's that socializing. The other thing that's a big resource to us, which is the big question still, is the library. The library is a huge resource to us as families. And so how that looks is in question right now. I'm trying to think of other resources. There's different online resources, and it'll be interesting. Our kids are in acting, or well, our son is in acting, and so there are some groups that you can still have your kids in for resources. And so, yeah, I do think there's limited options during this season, and so it'll be how to be creative at home. So
Right. Yeah.
there's a lot of different things. If you just look up 25 activities to do at home as a family, just Google that, and I'm sure you'll come up with a number of different lists. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That'll be a good start for sure. So teaching kids, whether in school or at home, has got to be exhausting. How do you separate the parent-teacher role, or do you even need to separate them?
Um, that's a good question. So when people transition, so we did transition from our kids in a brick and mortar school to our kids being homeschooled. So I started teaching my daughter at grade 5 and my son at grade 3. And so up until that point, they were in a traditional school. That is always advised, if you do go into homeschooling, that you have kind of a transition period to get into school, because it's also the parent trying to learn the rhythm. So don't be as hard on yourself. That's always the beginning of this homeschool journey, is we set our expectations of ourselves and our kids really high, and that can cause more pressure than actually the work that needs to be done. And so have this grace period for you and for your kids, where you have a lower workload, not as high as the standard that you're going to get to, in order to transition into this new schedule.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see what the school board does with that, because they are determining what that expectation is for your kids.
Right.
But hopefully they have some advice, as if parents really are doing this, you're transitioning into it, because it's a big learning curve for a child even to learn the technology to do this learn at home, let alone the courses itself. So
Right. Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
write emails, like our kids had done online school before, and so I know there's just a learning curve with that alone. So.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be a learning curve on all sides, even at the teacher board level, right?
And the teachers can speak, or the parents can speak into that. As parents are giving feedback, I'm sure school boards will want to hear in a respectful way, this is working or this isn't working, because this is brand new for them as well. So.
Right. Yeah. So with homeschooling, I understand there is a cost that is sometimes involved, whether it's for homeschooling itself or materials and resources. Can you talk a bit about that?
So we have been blessed, because we are a part of a school board that is a resource to us, is to buy books for us. So we started our homeschool journey in Alberta, and we are under missionary status, being in Ontario and Quebec, and so we've been able to stay connected with our school board. But there is a cost. There are different book swaps that parents go to, again, with these homeschool groups that exist. If people are homeschooling to begin with, I would say connect with a current homeschooler and ask them their pros and cons, and try and figure out what system of educating you want to do. So there is the learn at home, there's the online, there's the trying to teach your kids to still get them the learning outcomes of their grade level, but you're choosing the material as opposed to the school giving you the material. And then there's the traditional, it's called, where you choose the material, you choose what they're learning. And then there's the unschooling, where the kids choose what they want to learn, and the parents it's more like the Montessori approach. And so there's lots of diversity within homeschooling. Again, the library is key for resources, swaps, or homeschool groups buying previous material that someone else used or borrowing it. And there's a lot of free resources online. There's amazing Khan Academy, Khan Academy. I think a lot of schools even might tell their kids about it now. That's a great one for math and some sciences. There's different sheets out there, like I think it's called mathskills.com. There's Brain Pop, which people can get a subscription to, or there's a number of free ones, but they can also get a subscription to it and have access to all the videos. And again, that ranges from English to the arts, and some math. And so some homeschooler groups already have a list of all these resources. So it's not necessarily about a lack of resources that are out there. It's being overwhelmed with too many resources. And that's where talking with potentially someone who has done homeschooling one-on-one, they can tell you, this worked for me, this worked for, or it didn't, and they can kind of understand, if you're going to purchase stuff, they can steer you in a way that might be more helpful.
Okay, that's awesome. So, so back to your topic about math and the Khan Academy, we've used that ourselves just for homework help, so that's a great
Mhm.
resource. But
Yep.
um, if a parent struggled in a subject, for example, math was never my thing back in high school, how can I possibly teach or support my child when I'm, you know, potentially lacking in that skill? So how does a parent
Yep.
approach that?
So your child can Google search. So technology makes everything amazing now. So you can Google search once you know what the name of the concept that you're struggling with. You can put it in, and there are so many different videos. Khan Academy is one of them. They're an organized way, but there's different teachers on there that have videos for free on YouTube explaining things. So they actually did a study with homeschooling and parents who, even though they only had a high school diploma, their kids excelled academically more than kids in private schools, even
Okay.
because it's the one-on-one, it's the caring environment, there's a lot of benefits for kids learning at home. So
Mhm.
the kids hopefully will get it. It depends though when it's I guess when it's prescribed to them, or if the kids get some say in this is what I want to learn. So that
Yeah,
there's a desire to learn.
right. Um, so what's been the biggest struggle for you to teach and how did you overcome that?
Oh, my son's obedience. Um, that one, I guess the main thing is I have to keep thinking life is a journey and you don't make a child overnight. And so um, there will be times you will be sad because of your child's lack of effort or
Mhm.
attitude. And so if you can have someone you can share with and just talk with, whether it's a spouse or a friend who's also on this journey, they can cheer you up. So it's, this isn't the only day in their life that's going to determine their entire life. And that's, it's a journey. It takes them time to mature. And so, yeah, it gets better eventually.
Um, so honestly then, my last question for you is, would you do it again, knowing what you know and everything you've been through, would you do it again to homeschool your children?
100%, I would have started out of the gate. I think it was good our kids got the experience of being in school because they never wanted to return. We gave them a choice every year when we talked, especially when we were talking about high school and future plans post-secondary and about the diploma. And we've gone the non-diploma route for our children, and they're excelling. And our daughter got into a really competitive program in a placement test instead of having the diploma. So the character you get to build at home, the family time you get to build at home, the flexibility of our schedule of when we can vacation. We could vacation as a family when it was low season for other places, and it was a great savings for us to go to great places because we had no schedule. They had to be in school at a set week. Um, Besides the fact that academically and socially kids do excel in this environment. So.
Mm. Well, that's awesome. I thank you so much for sharing some of that with us. I think a lot of parents are looking at their options and it's coming up, ramping up very quickly to
Yes.
make those decisions. So you may be hearing from us again. Certainly at the library, we're trying really hard to get back in order, trying to make sure everyone's safe and healthy. So we will see you back in branch soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, Rachel. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.